Right, okay. So, hi PJ, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to me today.
No worries.
I manage and look after and train a group of busy wee mummies, and it's all about the fat loss. So, I'm looking to chat to you today to maybe give them a wee bit more ease and clarity over the fact of maybe just tracking food and managing food over the weekend and things like that. Maybe you can help us out a bit so they don't feel so guilty about it. So really just what advice you would have for my wee mummies just when it comes to the weekend, just looking after their food a wee bit better or not feeling bad about being guilty or eating guilty.
Being
Eating
guilty.
bad stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of factors that are going to be involved in terms of consuming stuff on the weekend. I'll run through a few of them just to give you a bit of a background. So first one is basically habits, stuff that have manifested itself or we've learned over the years. The example I always like to give is, going to the movies and having treats and sweets, or, a cup of tea and a biscuit, or these, it's the weekend, we have a takeaway. All these things are learned behaviors that have turned into habits. And there could be a good sentiment attached to them. So, for example, I remember when my mum used to take me to the movies and she would buy the multi-pack of potato, cheese, and onion, and multi-pack Coke. We're not spending money in there. We're bringing this in. So it was always a bit of a treat. And same with the takeaway. We couldn't afford a takeaway every week. But when you got it, it was amazing. It was sort of like a group family thing. So there's an emotion attached to that. And also the food tastes good as well. So these a lot of the time become learned behaviors over time. And we sometimes need to take a step back, look at the situation. Maybe there's an emotion attached. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is stress. If you've got busy mummies running after kids, like you were saying earlier, stress levels are up the high dough. Your natural instinct is look after kids first, look after everybody before you look after yourself. And I could be cliched and say, when we're in an airplane, everyone always says, put on your oxygen mask. But I'm sure everyone in here would give their life for their kids, even as annoying as they can be sometimes. But managing stress is a huge part of it. So when you look at some of the research, mums especially don't get a lot of sleep. There is this sort of protective nature, and what stress related sort of stuff will tell us is if you are lacking sleep, you're going to be more impulsive with your food and your food decisions. So I talk a lot about this on some of our nutrition seminars where, a lack of sleep leads to more sugar cravings, leads to, more sweet tasting palative or hyper palatable food, basically really nice tasting food. And what that food does to us, apart from tasting good, is it gives our brain a nice big dose of energy and happiness and so forth. So managing stress is difficult because that's multifaceted in terms of sleep, in terms of eating the right foods, in terms of exercise and so forth. So we've got those learned behaviors, we've got those things that cause us stress, our relationships, our business, our kids, lack of sleep, all these sort of things. And then, you've got, how can I put this? You've got your sort of goals or what you truly want. And this is something a lot of people touch on. Everybody just says, listen, if you want it enough, you'll not do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're in the wrong environment.
Yeah.
And that's a massive thing. So we can't really control what our body does hormonally, but what we can control is what we put in our body to affect our hormones, and they're two different things. And a lot of the times that is pre-medicated by our environment. So what does that mean? It means if you're constantly heading out with friends who like to drink alcohol and have takeaways and treats, the likelihood that you are going to consume those things is very, very high. There's studies done that were called the power of food scale. And basically what they wanted to measure was The main reasons why first world westernized countries were overeating. And the main thing they came up with was these people were eating for hedonic reasons. And what that means is they were eating out of boredom and they were eating out of pleasure. You know, I went for dinner on Friday night, nice restaurant, like fancy 6 sort of dishes, so forth. And when it came to the end, was I hungry? No. But did I get a cheese board? Fuck yeah. Like, I'm not getting that cheese board because I'm hungry. I'm getting it because it tastes good.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking I deserve a treat. I deserve a reward. You know, and there's a lot of all these emotions sort of tied in with stress and habits and stuff like that. And it becomes hard. And I don't want to use words like break bad habits because it assumes that you have, you know, something wrong with you like that isn't great.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, like it's so common. A lot of people do it. A lot of people stress eat. I do it. A lot of people overeat on the weekends.
Yeah.
But it will come down to managing those factors, really getting in a headspace of, okay, if this is super important to me, what are the things that I can control? I can invest in a coach like yourself to guide you, give you the direction, give you the foods that you want to eat, the right times, give you the right exercise to fuel your body. The other thing is that we need to control is our environment. So we need to speak to our partners, we need to speak to loved ones, need to explain to them what you're doing, because if you don't, you know, what happens, say your partner likes a Chinese every Saturday night, and you just say, I'm going on a diet, but you haven't told the person. And they just do the same behaviors they do anyway, which is I'm getting the Chinese. And then there's this conflict of not eating together and going like, oh, iron will discipline, and everyone breaks at some point, you know. So it's managing that environment. And what I found really interesting, I looked at a few studies a few years ago, and I always get people who talk about, you know, work is bad for like cakes and buns and stuff like that. What the actual research tells us is, on average, someone will lapse on their diet a minimum of 4 times in a week. Right? The minimum person lapses 4 times, and that lapse could be food that they shouldn't be eating or that they didn't plan on eating. Where this mostly happened was at home, in the evenings, and even higher on the weekends. So you're not alone, girls. Like, this is something that is a continuous problem for loads of people. I'm not even going to say it's a problem, because some people, you know, can successfully lose weight loss and, you know, eat really good during the week and stuff as well. So we need to view it as, okay, well, this is something that's holding me back from getting results. What can I do to address it? You know, and the very simple things are, do you prefer to eat, you know, later in the evening? If you do, could we implement stuff like maybe some intermittent fasting, where we push our meal timings back, so we mimic eating more in the evening than we would in the mornings. Okay. The other thing is, are you sweet tooth or are you savory? Well, if you're a sweet tooth, can we change that, or can we make a substitution? So that cup of tea and a biscuit, the trigger becomes sitting down in the living room, 9 p.m., kids are in bed, I don't have a cup of tea, and then you want something sweet with it. So can we change that trigger of, maybe let's sit in the kitchen, stupid as this sounds, can we change this to a green tea? Because a lot of people were like, green tea and a biscuit just don't go together.
Yes, no, you're right.
And it's just swapping some things out. It's probably just a really easy way to do things. And then obviously managing our blood sugar levels throughout the day. And this is what a lot of mums don't tend to do. I deal with a lot of females as well, and they tend to go, well, I skip breakfast, I only really pick at things, and then I eat a big meal. And I always tend to shout at them, because I'm like, if you've got kids, you're picking at your kids' food. And you just see like the look, because they forget that they do this. It's just reactive. Just they're making food for everyone else. They're picking at things, and they forget how much they've consumed over a period of time. And on that, girls, if you're struggling to lose weight, and that's your sort of routine and strategy, not Marlene or myself can change that. That's something that will take time, and we don't want to if that's what you're used to. But what they found was when they had over 20 people who reported having a history of, unable to lose weight, these people had said they were eating less than 1,200 calories and that they were exercising very hard. And when they measured it, they found that people were underreporting on their food by an average of 1,000 calories.
Wow, it's huge.
So these people were saying they're eating 1,200 when in reality they're eating 2,000. They over-reported their exercise by an average of 250 calories. So they made it work a little bit, and then they were like, yeah, I think I burned like 500 calories there.
Yeah.
Or my Fitbit has told me I've done this. It's going to be a bit of an issue. So the point that I want to make is, if we can manage those factors that we can control, our environment, what we put in our mouth, manage our blood sugars by eating at set times, even just swapping out some things. And girls, I'm sorry to say this, but when you're dieting, you're trying to lose weight, there has to be some form of sacrifice.
I know.
There's no way of I can give you everything that you want.
Yeah.
Still lose weight. I can still give you some things, but there has to be. And the way I like to describe it is delayed gratification, because that's what people do at the weekend. They're delaying that gratification throughout the week, and they're having it on the weekend. So it's never off the table. There is no bad foods. If I asked you what foods are fattening, what foods cause you to put on weight, like what are the common ones that you hear?
Because chocolate, they'll all say chocolate and having their takeaways. It's always about the Chinese, had Chinese the weekend, and but most of my clients, it's the majority of them would be chocolate, and then there's a few in there that savory, have their crisps. So that's the things where they just cannot live without. Yeah.
So there's two parts. The reason why I asked that is because if you went and had a bar of chocolate right now, or any of your clients, would you put on weight? Like, have you suddenly just put on a stone from having a Snickers bar? No. What the research says is, in order for us to put on weight, we need to be continuously overeating for an extended period of time. So imagine you have a bad day, like a Saturday, you go to town, you eat everything in sight. Now, you will put on weight, but what that weight is water, carbohydrates, salt. Okay, it's too quick for your body to convert that to fat. Okay, because every time you overeat, your body wants to burn those calories off in some way. Okay, the other flip side of it is, if you do this for extended periods of time, then obviously you're going to put on weight. But if you do it on a Saturday night, like most of my clients will as well, I tell them what's going to happen. What's going to happen is your weight is going to be slightly up Sunday, Monday. But if you trust the plan, what you're going to notice is that your weight will tail off and come down and potentially get lower as long as you're in that calorie deficit.
Yeah.
And the best way to sort of associate that with, I'm sure everyone in here, bar the pre-menopause and menopausal women we were speaking about before, how much weight do you put on during your menstruation? And then how much weight do you lose the week after?
Yeah.
So if you don't realize that you fluctuate, throughout the month as well, and everyone fluctuates daily, we can sometimes afford to cut ourselves some slack, because what's that guilt feeling costing you? It's costing you more of an emotional buy-in. And when you're emotional, you get a little bit more stressed. And when you're stressed, what do you want to do? You want to eat.
Eat, comfort eat.
Yeah. I have one particular client I coach, she's in the States, and a lot of the stuff we talk about around her food is her emotional state. She's in a very highly volatile job. Like, it demands a lot of her. She's very stressed. And so we look at things that we can control. Getting out, being active, water intake. Before she goes to eat, just taking a moment to address what sort of state that she feels that she's in.
Yeah.
And in terms of being in a calorie deficit, losing weight, she messaged me the other day. It's like, I'm really having a really stressful day. I'm really hungry.
Yeah.
And I says, I don't think she really had any calories left for the day. I says, do not eat anything. And the next day she woke up leaner. And I told this story to someone and they were like, oh, well, like if you're hungry, you know, you want to eat something. And I was like, yes, but if you give in to every urge that you have, then you're probably not going to make the progress that you want. If you're in a nutrition plan and you're exercising, you're going to be hungry at some point.
Yeah.
You know, that's a nice feeling to have, because, you know, in Western society and modern day first world countries, we very, very rarely ever feel hungry. Or if we do, we can just stuff our face.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I know that was a massive background and stuff like that, but for my girls, I tend to let them know what the landscape looks like and what's going to happen. So whenever it comes to, you know, someone coming and going, yeah, I had a bit of a Chinese or takeaway last night, I'm like, cool. No, you're an adult. You know, if it starts to get out of hand, then we're going to need to have a conversation about, you know, is this true? Or do you really want to push yourself like this? Nobody wants to feel guilty. I don't want to shout at anyone. And I don't know what you're like, Marlene, but when I first started in the industry, I shouted at people like a drill sergeant. And, you know, it worked really well for like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then they were like, who is this prick? And this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, to treat me like a child.
Yeah.
You know, and if anybody can understand the situation that your clients are in, is yourself, because you've been there and you've done it.
Yeah, 100%.
And so we don't always have the same iron will discipline that Marlene or some coaches will have, but that's behaviors that can be learned. That's stuff that can be learned. And you know, for females especially, and busy mums, they just tend to have no boundaries and they tend not to look after themselves, and that's why their health usually deteriorates and suffers a little bit. So, you know, be selfish. Being selfish is not always a bad thing.
No.
You know, putting yourself first, you know, you being the best version of you brings the best version to your relationship and to your kids.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Yeah. So that's it. I mean, the point you've touched on there, feeling guilty, putting yourself first, things like that need to go. It's bad to put yourself down just because you've had a bad day of eating or you weren't great over the weekend. We're only human. And if you have a goal, you're right, you know, you work towards it, but it won't always be a straight line. You know, there's going to be ups and downs, and the thing is just about being consistent and making the sacrifices when you need to, and getting up and getting on with it again if you have fell off the bandwagon or, as you thought, being really bad over the weekend. So just really on that point of being in control of what you're eating as well. A lot of the girls would, some of my girls would track their food, and it's maybe a new experience for them, and they've maybe looked at an eating plan. I've thought, no, I'm not going to eat all that, so I'll maybe just try and eat what I want to eat, but track it and try and stay within a certain number of calories or macros or whatever. Some have found it great, some haven't, and they've maybe tried it and went, no, it's not for me. So just really your view on what you think of tracking, and is it if you're on a fat loss journey, is it religious to do it, or is it more about you managing your food and eating the clean foods that you need to eat really to lose weight?
This is something we run into a lot as well a few years ago, which was, you know, somebody comes to us and we're very much an education facility. Like we have monthly workshops. We try and invest a lot of time into our clients. And I remember that this one particular guy came in and I said to him, did you watch my webinar on nutrition? Mm-hmm. And I'd asked him a few times, and this is the first time I'd seen him in the gym. And he was like, PJ, listen, I have a very stressful 9-to-5 job. I have 3 kids in the house. Mm-hmm. I don't have time for that. I want you to tell me what to do, mm-hmm. and I want you to like tell me what to eat. So I was like, okay, that was the light bulb. And the reason why I did that is when we were asking people to track, mm-hmm. we were asking them to use apps like MyFitnessPal. And what we realized is there was a lot of variance in terms of people putting stuff incorrectly. So one, they didn't know how to use the app, mm-hmm. right? They weren't taught how to use the app. Mm-hmm. Right. So when we go like that, you put that all in wrong and so forth. So there has to be a continuous approach of, getting people upskilled on this. Mm-hmm. The other approach is, people being really busy, stressed out, and what we're doing is we're adding more stress to them, especially things that they're not really either comfortable with, or if they do have an issue of guilt with certain foods, they don't want to let the world know. So I created what was known as my 3 client stages, which I teach on my nutrition seminars and stuff now. And it was pretty much what I wanted to do was, I was sick of telling people what to eat. Because if any of your viewers are on here now and I ask them what they should eat, they'll tell me the right answer.
Yeah.
More vegetables, more fruits, more lean proteins. If that's the case, then what are we doing here? And this is where I get into the psychology. And our previous question, I touched more on the psychology and emotion, because, the state of mind is what drives, that food. So I categorize people into 3 stages. Stage 1 people are people who have little or no knowledge around exercise or nutrition, right? They have no clue. They've never trained before. They probably lack culinary skills, which is a massive part, right? And they don't know where to start. They may have tried Slim World, they may have tried a couple of things, okay? And then my stage 2 people were people who maybe exercised before, maybe know themselves their way around the gym, or have done classes, or maybe they have a meal plan or something in the past. They've maybe just hit a plateau, or they're just struggling for motivation. So that happens to a lot of us, especially as we train for a period of time.
Yeah.
And then the stage 3 people are what I call the lifestyle douchebags. These are the people who've earned their stripes. Like they've been training for a while. They view exercise as fun, as enjoyable, where most of my clients view exercise as a punishment. I don't want them to view it as a punishment. They're thinking, I need to get over the weekend here by really pushing myself hard. When they're in it for a while, they'll realize that, okay, I didn't train this week, I feel sore, like I need to move. These stage 3 people are like, they eat something bad for a day or two on holiday, and they're like, I need a salad.
Yeah.
I need to feel good about myself. So I say to my clients, okay, I'm sick of talking about what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat, all these proteins. I want every single one of you to tell me what stage resonates with you, and I'm going to give you the exact step that you need to take next to make progress. So when they were like, well, I'm stage 1, I haven't got a clue, I'm new to this. Okay, break down your food. Oh, well, Katie's having 2 or 3 takeaways a week. Okay, can we reduce that to 1 takeaway? Can we increase our steps? Can we increase our water? Simple things. I don't want to overload tracking. I don't want to do anything crazy just yet. Right? Yeah. Simple basic steps, some calorie swaps, stuff like that. Stage 2 people, I'm going to challenge. I'm going to set them a plan. I'm going to say, listen, see, for the next 6 weeks, like I need you to knuckle down. Like, this is the outcome that we want. I want you to lose, 10 to 14 pounds in the next 6 weeks. And here's how you're going to do it. Yeah. But also the most important thing is to get that buy-in. Do you think that this plan is feasible? Do you think that you can do this?
Yeah.
And the other thing I need to address there is previous successes. I don't know if you get this a lot, but my fictional character I was talking about is Mary, right? So Mary comes to me and she's like, oh, I want to lose weight. And we set up a plan and strategy. And then the first thing Mary says is, oh, but in Slim World, we do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Mary, there's a reason why you're here. Now I take a different approach. Now I just go, okay, I'm going to choose the approach that best suits you. Yeah. So that all comes in a client consultation. What's worked for you in the past, Slim World? Okay, well, here's why it worked. Here's why it stopped. Here's what you need to do. If you enjoy that state of eating, let's do it. But, those people will always have their previous successes. I have it with guys. Oh, yeah, I used to be able to, bench press 100 kilos. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jimmy, you're 50 years of age. You did that when you were 20. Come on.
Yes. It's not happening now.
So it's managing those expectations. And then stage 3 people, you're very rare to get those people, but they need really challenge. I don't know about you. I know you have photos of your photo shoot and stuff like that. That was probably something that you needed to challenge yourself.
Oh, 100%. Needed to really push for it. Like, it wasn't easy, but really.
So there's a big achievement there. But for me, it was running a marathon, right? I lift weights. That's all I do. So I was just like, I need to get out of my comfort zone. I'm going to run a marathon. Challenging myself just to keep the interest in fitness there and stuff as well. So for any of your girls and stuff as well, I'd be like, okay, where are you at? Right. Yeah. And, you know, can you manage these sort of stresses, or can you do these things here? Because tracking is super important, right? It's probably the best thing we can do to, what I like to say to our clients is make them problem aware, to highlight, you know, the amount of times people come back to me and go, I didn't know I was eating so much.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much calories in that food.
Not realizing, yeah, it's a learning curve.
Yeah. And so what I've done is I've now brought that to the top of their mind, and they're now looking at foods differently. They're going, wonder how many calories is in that. Okay. But that's a learned approach. Not everybody's in that right position. And that's something that, you know, we were trying to find, why does this not work? Because every coach will recommend tracking. Because if I'm an accountant, and I truly believe I'm just a numbers guy. If you come to me and you weigh this much and you eat this much and this, I'll change numbers. If you tell me you lift this weight this many times, this many sets, you take this rest period, I give you numbers. You know, so in terms of tracking our progress, if I was a CEO of a business, no way I am, but anyway, I want to see the numbers. I can't make a decision, or what I'm just doing is like, maybe we should go that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas I want a clear, concise plan of, okay, here's where you're at, here's where you need to go. And I have a simple slide I always use, and it tries to just make things simple. It's like, are you losing weight? Yes. Keep doing what you're doing. What you're doing is working.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are you losing weight? No. Okay. Can you track your food? Yes. Okay, track your food. We'll see where we're at. We'll adjust it. We'll get you back on that weight loss journey. No, can't track it. Terrible, blah, blah, blah. Cost us a little bit more time. Can you do a little bit more physical exercise? Can you do a little bit more walking? Can you do maybe another training session? And again, the answer is going to be yes or no. No. Okay, well, then we really need to look at that food, because I can't physically get you out anymore. I can't physically do any more exercise. I need to adjust that. That's the lever that I want to play with. If you're like, yes, I can do actual training sessions, awesome. But again, you find some of those OCD people maybe go a little bit too far, but we want to manage that. So we increase our energy expenditure, and we essentially should be getting them back on that fat loss journey again.
Yeah.
And it's primarily just those little things. And when one thing starts, you know, not working, then we need to look at the big overall picture. We step back and go, you know, Mary, you're doing 3 tough sessions with me a week. You know, you're taking in, for me, my prerequisites are three tough sessions, 2 liters of water, not including tea or coffee, and, you know, 10,000 steps. Or if you are maybe movement impaired and can't go that far, you know, an extra 2,000 or 3,000 on top.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that's really a lot of data for us. That's like, you're training 3 times a week, average calorie expenditure anywhere between 250 to 500, depending on some sessions. You know, plenty of water, and then obviously 10,000 steps. I can just go in now and go do more steps, or do more exercise, or increase your water, or if it comes to nutrition, depends on where they're at. Are they stage 1, stage 2, stage 3? But I know I sort of went on there, but what I found fascinating, and I only seen this research last year, and I told this to my staff, they basically took 3 groups of people. Each group had a different approach, a dietary approach. One group got basic lifestyle and nutritional advice. The middle group got calories to follow, and macronutrients. And the third group got a meal plan. Okay. Out of those 3, which do you think had the most weight loss?
The meal plan? Was it? It's this test.
In fact, the weight loss was basically roughly about the same across the board.
All 3?
Yeah. And so what way I interpret that is, and this is what I told my staff to do, which was, we have, you know, meal templates, meal plans, so that people always ask for them all the time. Just tell me what to eat. But we need to coach the person every week. You know, if any of your girls are in their deadlift, and I'm sure you're constantly going, listen, push your hips back, neutral spine, tuck your chin, all this stuff, right? So we're constantly reinforcing technique and stuff as well, but very seldom do we reinforce nutritional habits or nutritional things. And we also need to take the approach of where are they at, what stage are they at. Stage one, okay, all I want them is to do is just, reduce the takeaways. Reduce the takeaways. That's all all you focus on. That's all I want you to do. If they're having wild, they're binge eating at certain points because they're not eating for loads of periods of time, we may just get them on a settled structure. Because like why does the likes of Slimming World, which is the UK's most popular diet, why does it work? It just gives people structure. It gives people who are unaware of what they were doing, it gives them structure. And what are we trying to do by getting them to track? We're trying to give them some form of top of mind awareness so that we can give them structure. And two most popular diets that the UK and pretty much the world does is intermittent fasting and the keto diet. And do you know why they're both so popular?
No.
It's just guidelines. So if you're doing intermittent fasting, do not eat between these times. If you're doing keto, don't eat carbs.
Easy.
So as a client, that's easy information to digest. Just do this. Don't do anything else. Just do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we need to, look at, where each one of our clients are and go, yes, tracking is super important. I want you to be aware of what you're taking in, because it's what I would call nutritional intelligence, and you can make better informed decisions when you know. A bit like if you don't look at your bank account, then you're never really going to know what situation you're in until you get nope. And then you're like, oh shit, I need to address this. So for me, if I can get someone tracking 1 billion%, girls, if you can do it and you can even dedicate a week to weighing and measuring, I know that adds additional stress to your life, but the stuff that you would learn off that is phenomenal. Like I remember the first time ever tracking, I was like, this is 150 grams of chicken, which is 40 grams of protein. I was like, I would have had like 2 of those. What was I doing?
I know the potatoes got me 100-gram potatoes. I was like, what?
There was nothing.
What's my Sunday dinner going to be like now?
Oh, I know.
But I totally agree. When my girls start with me, I mean, there's the standard chat about what to eat and the good foods and all the rest of it. And then we build up to the tracking and looking at, because you can't throw everything in there at once. It's too much. And even with my experiences, it takes time to learn that. But when they do start tracking, they always come back and go, oh my God, I can't believe how many calories is in that. I eat that all the time and I love that. And, but I find this swap and it's just as good. And, so it is a learning curve, but just don't get too invested in it, depending on your goal. That's
like everyone would look at the likes of yourself and go, well, I want to be where you are, but there's stages to that. Like you didn't suddenly just come along and go, I know everything and do everything.
Yeah. And I was at the stage, even as a trainer, didn't really want to train sometimes, didn't want to watch everything at, so we're all only human, and it's stages and it's learning and getting one day better at a time.
Yeah, 100%. And remember this, girls, like, Marlene's not trying to not get you progress. He's trying to do it in bite-sized ways that you understand and can take that information on board, or else what I've seen now is and I did a video on this, we do not have a weight loss problem in this country. We have a weight regain problem. People can lose weight, but keeping it off is the hard part. So when we're teaching you guys these habits, these behaviors, it's for sustainable long-term weight loss, because I'm sure you're sick and tired of yo-yo dieting.
Oh, definitely. Oh, and the other thing that gets me too is when girls say I want to lose weight, they automatically just stop eating. It's like they completely cut out all of the food that they would normally eat, and they start eating very little, which is just the worst thing to do. It's not sustainable, because they'll be lucky to last a week and then they're back to square one. But women are desperate for that, just like, oh, I want to lose the weight, right? That's it, I'm not eating. And it's always a Monday. From Monday, I'm not eating.
Yeah. And do you know what? It's a very generational thing as well. I find this with older mums as well. They would have done that a lot more. Um, and I'll tell you a funny story, and it's not really that funny, but for me it was. Um, I had a girl who used to train with us. Hadn't seen her in a long while. Met her out. This is years upon years ago. At a christening of one of my niece's christening, child's christening. And she was like, "Oh, I've lost like a stone." And I'm like, "Awesome, well done." She's like, "I've been taking these weight loss pills." I'm like, "Right." I said, "Do you really know what's in them?" And do you know what her response was? No joke. No, they're not that bad. They've only killed 3 people.
No, no, not that bad. Only 3.
And again, as a coach, I have light bulb moments in my career, and that was one of them, to the risk that people are willing to sacrifice their health in terms of looking good, you know, and we're sacrificing short term for long term. And you know, we were talking about going through menopause and different things there. It's like, you know, that's when stuff really comes back to haunt us. And you know, another story, sorry to go on here, but I had 3 girls who started with me on a 6-week challenge, and they were all related. 2 were sisters, 1 was a cousin. 1 was 18, 1 was mid-20s, the other one was late 30s, right? So the first week, customary, introduced them, you know, here's some healthy food shopping list. I'm not going to tell you what to eat just yet. I want you to try and track your food, and I'll give you specific information I want you to do. Okay. Week later, come in, the oldest girl, late 30s, was like, "I haven't lost any weight this week." I'm like, okay. But the middle one had lost 4 pounds and the youngest had lost 7. I was like,
Okay.
"What are you doing?" And they were like, they fell back on a plan they did before with another coach. We're all eating 1,200 calories. Right? And I was like, "Right, who told you to do that?" "No, we just wanted to follow." I was like, "Just track." Okay. Next week, same thing happened. I told them what to do. Like, obviously, we need to increase your calories slowly. I don't want you to say it 1,200 and so forth. So again, the oldest one didn't lose any weight. The middle one lost like 2-3 pounds. The youngest like 3 or 4 pounds. And the oldest girl came to me and she's like, "Why am I not losing weight?" And there's a whole mirage of answers, but I was like, "What has the youngest girl got over you?" Age, less metabolic issues in terms of like less dieting, less stress, doesn't have kids, all these different things, you know, that have built up over the years. You know, I hate to say it, but we're not as young as we used to be. We're not as, you know, our bodies aren't as resilient, you know, as we get a little bit older. So every diet we do takes a toll, and we have to pay the price of that somewhere. So if you are doing that and you're starving yourself, I can guarantee you will have lost a lot of weight the first time you did it, not as much the second time, not as much the third, and it will come to a point where you'll not see any progress from it.
Yeah, 100%. And you touched on a point there, just in the last point, because I don't want to keep you. Menopause. I train a few old ladies that are drifting into that nice time, and they're finding that tummy fat, you know, they're really starting to just can't seem to shift that area. Even though they're eating, exercising, doing all the right things. What is your advice to those ladies?
There's a few things. I have a few in the exact same situation, and one in particular was told that the average is about 7 to 10 pounds of weight gain going into menopause. It's first off, it's a naturally occurring thing that, you know, your body is going through. So it's not a disease, it's not illness, it's not like something that shouldn't be happening to you. It's something that like happens to all women at a certain age. And you know, essentially what's happening is our hormones are adapting to, again, not releasing any more eggs for fertilization and menstruation. You know, it's resulting in terms of the stuff that we've done, like heavy smoking, or maybe we have are overweight and obese, because this can all lead to early menopause. And so when we're looking at, you know, the things that get us into pre-menopause, there's a lot of things that we can do to try and offset that until they do get there. The usual things that people experience: hot flushes, dare I say it, vaginal dryness, loss of libido, you know, loads of different sort of factors. As you say, they're weight resistant.
Mm-hmm.
But what the research says is, the earlier you go into menopause, the likelihood is that you have cardiovascular disease or onset. Sorry, I'm not saying you all have it, by the way. Type 2 diabetics and so forth. So as we get closer to that, our body, obviously hormones are adjusting. We become less glucose tolerant, right? So that means we don't handle carbohydrates as well. Right? We also have a down regulation of the hormones in our body, estrogen, progesterone, stuff like that we've needed. So if I was looking at, things that will help, we start with the basics first. There is no way around thermodynamics in weight loss. So for anybody that doesn't understand that, is you still need to expend calories to lose the weight. That is the basis. When you get to a point where you feel like the body is still very resistant, then you could look at, alternative strategies to add on to exercise and nutrition and stuff like that. So you would, in terms of like helping with sort of hot flushes, we probably want to, lower our carbohydrate intake. I'm not saying no carbs, girls, by the way. Carbs are good. Lower our carbohydrate intake, increase our healthy fats to manage our blood sugar levels a little bit better. Just be aware in terms of high levels of caffeine and alcohol, especially because our body is not converting any of these phytoestrogens into estrogen, which helps us with weight loss. There's a lot of big stigma about estrogen and how bad it is. It's one of the females' best muscle building and keeping people lean hormones. We also have inflammation that's happening within the body. So if you're overweight, your body is producing more inflammatory sort of they're called sort of cytokines, but like more inflammatory responses. And if you're overweight, your body's in a constant state of inflammation. And then you can experience stuff like low brain energy, where your body's just not as efficient at using glucose and carbohydrates and stuff like that there. So apart from the basics of you need to move more, you need to increase your water, there's a few supplementary things, but I don't want to put a basis on you need to be taking this supplement to manage this, because a common thing that girls usually do is they give up and they go on to HRT. Before you make that decision, girls, realize that there is possible side effects to taking HRT. Some people, again, sacrifice their short term for long term. But you can treat it with good nutritional protocols and good healthy lifestyle. So like some lifestyle modifications, make sure, again, clothing wise, try not to be like dressing 4 or 5 layers, because you get a hot flush, you're going to be sweating, you're going to be stealing everything off, right? Like looking at maybe taking some Epsom salts, in terms of an Epsom salts bath or magnesium powder, just to sort of help with balancing sort of hormones and stuff like that. Obviously avoid turning the heating on all the time. Basic stuff. You can look at foods, sometimes spicy food like a curry is going to obviously heat you up. Smoking can have an effect, alcohol, all these sort of things. But in terms of weight loss, and as much as this probably breaks your heart, girls, listen to this. Yes, hormonally there's changes going on with your body, but in essence, you do not outdo the law of physics and thermodynamics. So if you are a little bit resistant, we want to support your immune system. We want to support your body as you're going through this change. But really, you got to make sure that you're doing the basics of exercise, good nutrition, plenty of veggies, probably a lower carbohydrate diet is probably going to be the best. Keeping that to maybe after you train, rather than saying you can never have carbs. Your body's in a very more beneficial position to deal with those sort of carbohydrates. So for those menopausal women, there's different approaches. I don't want to turn around and say this is a magic supplement, this is going to help, but if you've got all those boxes ticked, then we can start looking at stuff that can support your body, your adrenals, your inflammation, and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's just being a wee bit more consistent and just getting through it with a healthy diet and keeping active as we should be doing anyway. So
yeah, no one likes to hear that information.
No,
It's the same thing I said to that older girl. You know, what has a younger person got over you?
Yeah.
There's actually great research to say that people who have a negative association to menopause actually experience more symptoms.
Right. Okay.
So they have this idea of it's bad and it's negative and I'm going through this change and you don't understand. And it actually heightens the symptoms because you're basically telling yourself that this is a horrible, horrible thing. Yeah. Over 90% of people who go through menopause will experience hot flushes and different things, but only so many actually experience severe symptoms. And there's another study called, it's a famous study called the Florida study. And they basically had a load of people come into a room one at a time and they had words in front of them, words that represented age, gray hair, old, walking stick, stuff like that. But the real test was whenever they had finished looking at these, they had to walk down the corridor and turn the light off. And what they found was the people who were around those older words walked slower.
Right, okay.
They started to develop around the words that they were in again. Yeah, like you hear some of these gurus going, you got to manifest it, you got to tell yourself positive things. There is actually some science around it. So yeah, you know, this is a change of life. This isn't the end of life.
Yeah.
And don't see it as, okay, I've got a condition or something wrong with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, managing it with all those things. I'm a big believer in functional medicine. I use a lot of functional medicine with my clients. I don't want them to rely on HRT or taking pharmaceutical medicine for the rest of their life. I'm like, can we manage your body in a healthier way?
Yeah. 100%.
So, and I've seen it done numerous times. Is it easy? No, but is it worth it? 1,000,000%.
Oh, definitely it is. No, I agree. And just not popping a pill or running and getting the newest supplement just to manage something. It's just about you just looking at your exercise and eating and drinking and sleeping.
Yeah.
All the stuff is good for us. Well, that's everything. You've covered a lot. I really appreciate it. There's some really interesting stuff there. The girls will get a lot of benefit out of it, as did I. I could listen to you talking all day. So thank you so much, PJ, for having me chat.
No worries, guys. No worries.
Thank you now. Bye-bye.